Chapter 1. Fang Yuan, obediently hand over the spring and autumn cicada, and I'll give you a quick death. Old demon Fang, don't even think about resisting. Today, all the major righteous sects have united to trample your devil's nest. We've already set up an inescapable net here. This time, you'll definitely be beheaded. Fang Yuan, you damned demon. In order to cultivate the spring and autumn cicada, you've taken the lives of millions. You've already committed a monstrous sin. Your sins are unforgivable and too numerous to count. Demon, 300 years ago, you humiliated me, took away my chastity, killed my entire family, and executed my 9 generations. From that moment on, I wanted nothing more than to eat your flesh and drink your blood. Today, I'll make you wish you were dead. Fang Yuan was wearing a tattered dark green robe. His hair was disheveled, and his body was bathed in blood as he looked around. The mountain wind blew his bloody robe, causing it to flutter like a war flag. Bright red blood gushed out from the hundreds of wounds on his body. Just by standing there for a while, a large pool of blood had already accumulated at Fang Yuan's feet. Surrounded by enemies, there was no way out. The outcome was already decided. Today, he would definitely die. Fang Yuan could see the situation clearly, but even at the brink of death, his expression did not change, and his expression was calm. His gaze was faint, like a deep well, bottomless as always. The heroes of the good faction who besieged him were either the distinguished elders of a sect or the young heroes who were famous all over the world. At this moment, they firmly surrounded Fang Yuan. Some were roaring, some were sneering, some were squinting their eyes with vigilance, and some were clutching their wounds in fear. They did not make a move. They were all afraid of Fang Yuan's final counterattack before his death. This tense confrontation lasted for 6 hours. As the sun set in the west, the afterglow of the setting sun lit up the sunset glow on the mountainside, and for a moment, it was as gorgeous as fire. Fang Yuan, who had been as still as a statue, slowly turned around. The heroes immediately became restless, and all took a big step back. At this moment, the grey stone under Fang Yuan's feet had long been dyed dark red by blood. Due to the excessive loss of blood, her pale face was illuminated by the sunset, suddenly adding a beautiful luster to it. Looking at the setting sun on the green mountain, Fang Yuan chuckled. The setting sun on the green mountain, the autumn moon and the spring breeze. It's really like black hair in the morning, turning into snow at dusk, success or failure turning into nothingness. As he said this, various scenes from his previous life on Earth suddenly appeared before his eyes. He was originally a student from Huaxia on Earth who had transmigrated to this world by chance. He had been tossing and turning for 300 years, roaming the world for more than 200 years. 500 years passed in the blink of an eye. Many of the memories buried deep in his heart came alive at this moment, vividly replaying in front of his eyes. In the end, I still failed. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart. He was a little emotional, but he didn't regret it. He had already foreseen this outcome. When he made his choice, he was already mentally prepared. The so-called devil Tao was to not cultivate good karma, but to commit murder and arson. Heaven and earth did not tolerate it. The entire world was his enemy, yet he still wanted to do as he pleased. If the newly refined spring and autumn cicada is effective, I will still be an evil spirit in my next life. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan couldn't help but laugh out loud. Old devil, what are you laughing at? Everyone be careful, the devil is about to die, he's going to counterattack. Quickly hand over the spring and autumn cicada. The group of experts closed in, but right at this time, with a loud explosion, Fang Yuan self-detonated. The spring rain continued, quietly nourishing Qing Maro Mountain. It was already late at night, and a cool breeze blew through the drizzle. Qing Maro Mountain was not dark. From the mountainside to the foot of the mountain, there were many glimmers of light, as if it was draped in a brilliant belt of light. These lights came from many tall buildings. Although it couldn't be said to be the lights of 10,000 households, there were still thousands of them. This was the Gua village that was located in the middle of Qing Maro Mountain, adding a dense atmosphere of human habitation to the vast and quiet mountain range. At the very center of the Gua village was a grand and magnificent pavilion. At this time, a ceremony was being held, so the lights were brightly lit, and the radiance was dazzling. Ancestors bless us. I hope that in this awakening ceremony, there will be many talented youths, to add new blood and hope to the family. The leader of the Gua village was middle-aged, his temples were slightly white, and he wore a solemn white ceremonial robe. He knelt on the brown floor, straightened his upper body, put his hands together, closed his eyes, and prayed sincerely. He faced a tall black lacquer table. There were 3 layers of the table, and the ancestral tablets were enshrined there. On both sides of the tablets, there were red copper incense burners, and smoke curled up. Behind him, there were also more than 10 people kneeling. They wore loose white ceremonial robes, and were the elders of the family. They were in charge of all aspects of the family. After praying for a while, the leader of the Gua village took the lead to bow, spread out his hands, and tightly pressed his palms against the floor, and kowtowed. His forehead hit the brown floor, and there was a soft thud. The elders behind him all had solemn expressions, and silently followed suit. For a moment, the ancestral hall was filled with the sound of forehead hitting the floor. After the ceremony ended, everyone slowly stood up from the floor, and quietly walked out of the solemn ancestral hall. In the corridor, the elders silently breathed a sigh of relief, and the atmosphere relaxed. Gradually, the sounds of discussion rose. Time really flies. In the blink of an eye, a year has passed. The last awakening ceremony seems like it happened yesterday, and it's still vivid in my mind. Tomorrow is the annual awakening ceremony. I wonder what kind of new blood will emerge this year. Sigh, I hope there will be a youth with a great talent. Our Gua village has not had such a genius in 3 years. That's right, the Bai clan and Xiong clan have all had geniuses these years. Especially the Bai clans by Ning Bing, his talent is really terrifying. Someone mentioned Bai Ning Bing's name, and the elders could not help but show a layer of worry on their faces. This child's talent was extremely outstanding, and in just 2 years, he had already cultivated to rank 3 GU master. Among the younger generation, he could be said to be the most outstanding. Even the older generation could feel the pressure from this rising star. In time, he would definitely become the pillar of the Bai clan. At the very least, he would be a strong individual. No one doubted this. But among the youths participating in this year's awakening ceremony, there is still hope. That's right. A talented youth has appeared in Fang Zhi's bloodline. Able to speak in 3 months, able to walk in 4 months. At the age of 5, he could compose poems and recite lyrics. He was exceptionally intelligent and talented. Unfortunately, his parents died early, and now he is being raised by his aunt and uncle. Yes, this is early intelligence, and he has great ambitions. In recent years, he has created Jiang Jingju, Ode to Plum, and Jiang Chengzi. I have also heard of them. What a genius! The Gua clan leader was the last to walk out of the ancestral hall. As he slowly closed the door, he heard the elders discussing in the corridor. Immediately, he knew that the elders were discussing a youth called Gua Fang Yuan. As the clan leader, he would naturally pay attention to those outstanding disciples. And among the younger generation, Gua Fang Yuan was one of the most outstanding and dazzling ones. And experience had shown that those who had photographic memory from a young age, or were as strong as an adult, had outstanding cultivation aptitude. If this child is tested to have a grade aptitude, with proper training, he may be able to compete with Bai Ning Bing. Even if it is B grade aptitude, in the future, he will be able to hold his own, and become a flag of the Gua clan. But with his precocious intelligence, the possibility of him being a B-grade talent isn't high, and is most likely an A-grade talent. With this thought, the GUU clan leader's mouth couldn't help but curl up, revealing a slight smile. Immediately after, he coughed and said to the elders, "Everyone, it is getting late. For tomorrow's awakening ceremony, please rest well tonight and maintain your spirit." When the elders heard this, they were all slightly startled. They looked at each other with a hint of vigilance. The clan leader's words were implicit, but everyone understood his meaning. Every year, in order to fight for these talented juniors, the elders would fight with each other until their faces were red and their heads were bleeding. It was time to conserve his energy and wait until tomorrow to fight for it. Especially that Gua Fang Yuan, the possibility of him having a grade aptitude was very high. And his parents had already passed away, and he was one of the 2 orphans of Fang Zhi's bloodline. If they could take him into their bloodline, and properly train him, they could ensure their bloodline's prosperity for 100 years. But, I will say the ugly words first. The fight must be open and aboveboard, and must not use underhanded methods to harm the unity of the clan. Elders, please keep this in mind, the clan leader said with a serious tone. I don't dare. I don't dare. I will definitely remember it. I will take my leave now, Lord Clan Leader, please stay. The elders, full of thoughts, dispersed one by one. Not long after, the long corridor became deserted. The spring rain and wind blew through the window. The clan leader lightly walked to the window. Immediately, his mouth was filled with the fresh and moist mountain air, refreshing and refreshing. This was the 3rd floor of the loft. As far as the eye could see, more than half of the Gua village was in sight. It was late at night, but most of the houses in the village still had lights, which was very different from usual. Tomorrow was the awakening ceremony, which concerned everyone's interests. An excited and nervous atmosphere enveloped the hearts of the clansmen. Naturally, many people could not sleep well. This is the hope of the clan's future. The clan leader sighed as the lights reflected in his eyes. At this time, there was also a pair of clear eyes, quietly watching the lights in the dark night, full of complicated feelings. Guyue village, this is 500 years ago. The spring-autumn cicada really worked. Fang Yuan's eyes were gloomy as he stood by the window, letting the wind and rain hit his body. The spring-autumn cicada's effect was to reverse time. It was ranked 7th among the top 10 mystical insects, so naturally it was no small matter. Simply put, it was rebirth. I used the spring-autumn cicada to be reborn, to go back to 500 years ago. Fang Yuan stretched out his hand, his eyes fixed on his young and pale palm, and then he slowly clenched it, trying hard to feel the reality. He heard the light sound of the drizzle hitting the window. He slowly closed his eyes, opened them after a long time, and sighed. 500 years of experience, it really is like a dream. But he clearly knew that this was not a dream. Chapter 2. According to legend, there was a river of time in this world, supporting the flow of the world. Using the spring-autumn cicada's power, one could go against the current and return to the past. Regarding this rumor, there were many opinions. Many people didn't believe it, and some people were skeptical. Almost no one was sure. Because every time the spring-autumn cicada was used, one had to pay with their life, sacrificing their entire body and all their cultivation to power it. This price was too high. What was even more unacceptable was that one often paid with their life, not knowing what the result would be. Even if someone obtained the spring-autumn cicada, they would not dare to use it carelessly. What if the rumor was false, and it was just a scam? If not for Fang Yuan's desperation, he would not have used it so quickly. But now, Fang Yuan completely believed it. Because the truth was right in front of him, there was no way to refute it. He had indeed been reborn. It's a pity for this good Gu. I spent a lot of effort, slaughtered hundreds of thousands of people, incurred the wrath of the heavens, and painstakingly refined it. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart. To raise my cultivation as soon as possible, been reborn, I have to use the clan's spring-autumn cicada with my current situation. Man was the spirit of all creatures, ability to travel through the dangerous mountains of heaven and earth. Even a normal wild boar can take of all shapes and sizes. If I can reach the cultivation of a rank 3 after being used once I will have the basic ability to protect myself and travel through the mountains and rivers in this world. Could be reused. From the perspective of a demonic autumn cicada who had trained for 500 years, that could only be used once. Was really but even if small. It's gone, the Guyue village was more like a cage. I could refine it. However, in my previous while a cage imprisons can't freedom, I do it in this life? A sturdy prison cell after the pity represents Fang a certain kind of security, help but feel a surge of ambition for the time being. I'll just toss and turn around in this prison cell. And the loss of the spring-autumn cicada as long as I advance to rank 3, I can leave this poor mountain. He had treasures on him. But luckily, he did not Tomorrow have nothing. Is the awakening this ceremony. Treasure was his 500 years of memories. I can officially start my Gu master There were many treasures in his memory. Once he thought of the awakening ceremony yet. The dusty memories. There were many major events that allowed him to easily grasp the context of history. Looking out the window, there were countless figures of people. Laugh coldly. Some were reclusive. At this moment, some were geniuses, gently pushed open, and some were not even born yet. man walked in. It also contained the arduous cultivation and rich combat experience this young man accumulated over the past 500 years. With his face was very undoubtedly grasped the big picture and had the initiative. Turned around to look at this young man. As long as he manipulated it well, it wouldn't be a problem for him to roam the world unhindered and recreate the demeanor of a great demon. He raised his eyebrows slightly. He might even be able to reach a higher realm. Then how should I operate it? Fang Jing lowered his head, looking very rational. This was his signature emotions and pondered while facing the night rain outside the window. So I wanted to sneak in and close it this way. Tomorrow that there were a lot of things to think about. Brother, after thinking for a moment, you're still not his frown deepened. If Uncle and Aunt knew, years was indeed a long time. He was not surprised talk about those blurry memories that I can't recall. Because his brother had always been like this. Even though there were many hidden treasures and immortal masters, fortuitous geniuses were different. Most of them were either thousands of miles apart, although he looked very similar to his brother. The most important as an ant is still cultivation. They were born from the same mother's womb. He had yet to open, why was the heavens he had yet to embark on the path. His brother was gifted with the talent of a diamond. He was simply as ordinary as a pebble. I have to cultivate everyone around him would say and increase Fang Yuan's younger brother when talking about the initiative. Uncle and as many benefits told him to learn from his brother. Even when he looked in the mirror and looked at his own high enough, he felt wouldn't be able to digest the treasures. These thoughts had been accumulating in the depths of his heart for many years. It was a hot potato, like a huge rock pressing on his chest. Fang Jing's problem in front of Fang Yuan was cultivation, and he became more and more taciturn. He had to raise his cultivation as soon as possible. Thinking of his uncle and aunt, if it was as slow as in his previous life, it would be too late. He remembered very clearly that the parents of this body had both died because of a family mission. When he was 3 years old, he and his brother became orphans. In the name of raising them, his uncle and aunt openly took over his parents' inheritance and treated him and his brother harshly. As a transmigrator, he had planned to hide his strength and bide his time. But the hardships of life forced Fang Yuan to choose to reveal his extraordinary talent. The so-called genius was actually just the rationality of a mature soul and a few famous poems from the Tang and Song dynasties on Earth. Even with such a small display of skill, he was still regarded as a celestial being, and received widespread attention. Under the external pressure, the young Fang Yuan had no choice but to maintain a cold and indifferent expression to protect himself and reduce the possibility of being exposed. Over time, indifference became his habitual expression. Just like that, his uncle and aunt could no longer treat him and his brother harshly. As he grew older, his future became more promising, and his treatment also increased. But this was not love, but a kind of investment. It was laughable that his brother did not see the truth. Not only was he deceived by his uncle and aunt, but he also buried his hatred towards him. Although he looked obedient now, in his memory, after he was tested to have an A-grade aptitude, he was nurtured by the family, and his hidden hatred and jealousy was released. He often targeted, made things difficult, and suppressed his own brother. As for his own aptitude, the highest he had was only a C grade. Fate was always joking. A pair of twins, the elder brother's aptitude was only C grade, but he enjoyed the title of genius for more than 10 years. The younger brother was unknown, but he had an A grade aptitude. The result of the enlightenment shocked the clansmen. It also caused the treatment of the two brothers to be completely reversed. The younger brother was like a dragon rising to the sky, while the older brother was like a phoenix falling to the ground. After that, there were many difficulties from the younger brother, the cold eyes of his uncle and aunt, and the contempt of the clansmen. Hate. Fang Yuan had hated in his previous life. He hated his lack of aptitude, hated the ruthlessness of the clan, and hated the unfairness of fate. But now, with 500 years of life experience, he re-examined this process. His heart was calm, and there was no hatred. What was there to be angry about? Thinking about it from another perspective, he could also understand his younger brother, uncle and aunt, and the righteous enemies who besieged him 500 years later. The weak were prey to the strong, survival of the fittest. This was the nature of this world. Moreover, everyone had their own ambitions, and they were all fighting for the heavenly secrets. What was there not to understand about killing and suppressing each other? 500 years of experience had long made him see through all of this. In his heart, there was only the path of immortality. If someone stood in his way, no matter who it was, it would only be a matter of life and death. The ambition in his heart was too great. Once he set foot on this path, he was destined to be the enemy of the whole world. He was destined to be alone, and he was destined to kill. This was the realization condensed from 500 years of life. Revenge is not my plan. The path of an evil demon has never been one of compromise. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan could not help but laugh. He turned his head to look at his younger brother, and said, "You can leave." Fang Zheng's heart could not help but palpitate. He felt that his brother's gaze was as sharp as an ice blade, as if it could penetrate the deepest part of his heart. Under such a gaze, he felt as if he was naked in the snow, and there was no secret to speak of. "Then I'll see you tomorrow, brother." Not daring to say anything else, Fang Zheng slowly closed the door and retreated. Chapter 3. Bang, 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 bang. The patrolling night watchman banged the clapper rhythmically. The sound traveled to the tall building. Fang Yuan opened his dry eyelids and thought to himself, "It's the 5th day of the night." Last night, he lay in bed and thought for a long time. He made a lot of plans, but he only slept for a little more than 2 hours. This body had not started cultivating yet, so he did not have much energy. Therefore, waves of tiredness still enveloped his body and mind. However, more than 500 years of experience had forged Fang Yuan's steel-like determination. This bit of drowsiness was nothing at all. Immediately, he pushed away the thin silk bedding on his body and got up neatly. When he opened the window, the spring rain had stopped. The smell of soil, trees, and wildflowers was fresh and moist. Fang Yuan felt his head clear and his drowsiness was completely dispelled. The sun had not risen yet. The sky was a deep blue, dark and bright at the same time. As far as the eye could see, the tall building made of green bamboo and trees contrasted with the mountains. It was a quiet and dark green color. The tall building had at least 2 floors. It was the unique structure of the mountain people's houses. Because the mountain was rugged, the first floor was a huge wooden pile, and the second floor was the people's residence. Fang Yuan and his brother Fang Zheng lived on the second floor. "Young Master Fang Yuan, you're awake. I'll go upstairs and help you wash up." At this moment, a young girl's voice came from downstairs. Fang Yuan looked down. It was his personal maid, Shen Kui. Her looks could only be considered average, but she was well dressed. She wore a green shirt, long sleeves, long pants, and embroidered shoes. There was even a pearl hairpin in her black hair. Her whole body exuded the vitality of youth. She looked at Fang Yuan with joy. Carrying a basin of water, she went upstairs. The water was warm and was used to wash his face. Rinsing his mouth with a willow branch dipped in snow salt could clean and whiten his teeth. Shen Kui served him tenderly. There was a smile on her face, and her eyes were filled with love. After that, she helped Fang Yuan put on his clothes. In the process, she rubbed her ample breasts against Fang Yuan's arm or back from time to time. Fang Yuan was expressionless, and his heart was as calm as still water. Not only was this maidservant a spy for her uncle and aunt, but she was also vain and had a cold temperament. In his previous life, he had been deceived by her. After the awakening ceremony, when his status had plummeted, she had immediately turned against him and rolled her eyes at him. When Fang Zheng arrived, he saw Shen Kui smoothing out the creases on Fang Yuan's clothes. His eyes couldn't help but flash a trace of envy and jealousy. He had been living with his brother for the past few years and was taken care of by Fang Yuan. He also had a servant to serve him. However, it wasn't a young maidservant like Shen Kui, but a fat and swollen old maidservant. If one day, Shen Kui can serve me like this, how would it feel? Fang Zheng had some thoughts in his heart, but he didn't dare to think about it. His aunt and uncle favored Fang Yuan, and this was a matter that everyone in the Fu knew. Originally, he didn't have a servant to serve him. It was Fang Yuan who took the initiative to ask for one for Fang Zheng. Although there was a difference in status between master and servant, Fang Zheng didn't dare to look down on Shen Kui. This was because Shen Kui's mother was the Shen Momo who served his aunt and was also the housekeeper of the entire Fu. She was deeply trusted by his aunt and had a lot of power. "All right, you don't have to tidy up." Fang Yuan impatiently brushed away Shen Kui's soft hands. His clothes had long been tidied, and Shen Kui was more of a seduction. For her, his future was bright, and the possibility of having an A-grade aptitude was very high. If she could become Fang Yuan's concubine, she could change from a slave to a master. It could be said that she had reached the sky in one step. In his previous life, Fang Yuan had been deceived and even liked this maidservant. After his rebirth, he was as clear as a fire, and his heart was as cold as frost. You can leave. Fang Yuan didn't even look at Shen Kui as he tidied up his cuffs. Shen Kui slightly pouted. She felt a little strange and wronged for Fang Yuan's lack of understanding today. She wanted to say something coquettish, but she was deterred by Fang Yuan's inexplicable temperament. She opened her mouth a few times, but finally said yes and obediently retreated. Are you ready? Fang Yuan looked at Fang Zheng. His younger brother stood at the door in a daze. He lowered his head to look at his toes and softly said Yen. In fact, he had woken up at the fourth watch. He was too nervous to fall asleep, so he secretly got up and prepared early. Both of his eyes had dark circles. Fang Yuan nodded. In his previous life, he wasn't clear about his younger brother's thoughts, but in this life, how could he not understand? But it was meaningless to point it out at this time, so he lightly ordered, then let's go. Thus, the two brothers walked out of the residence. Along the way, they met many people of the same age, in twos and threes. Obviously, they had the same destination. Look, those are the two brothers of the Fang family. A careful whisper came into their ears. The one walking in front is that Fang Yuan. He's the one who wrote the poem, Fang Yuan. Someone emphasized. So it's him. He's expressionless, as if there's no one else around. He's really as arrogant as the rumors say. Someone said in a sour tone, with jealousy and envy. If you can be like him, you can also be arrogant. Someone replied with a cold snort, hiding a kind of dissatisfaction. Fang Jing listened with an expressionless face. He had long been used to this kind of discussion. He lowered his head and followed behind his brother, walking in silence. At this time, the horizon had already lit up with the morning light. Fang Yuan's shadow was cast on his face. The sun was gradually rising, but Fang Jing suddenly felt that he was walking towards darkness. This darkness originated from his brother. Perhaps in this life, he would never be able to break free from his brother's huge shadow. He felt a burst of pressure in his chest, and even had difficulty breathing. This damned feeling even made him think of the word suffocation. This kind of discussion really is the case of the tree that stands out in the forest being blown down by the wind. Listening to the discussion in his ears, Fang Yuan laughed coldly in his heart. It was no wonder that after the test of his C-grade aptitude, he was surrounded by enemies on all sides. For a long time, he was treated harshly, looked down upon, and treated coldly. Behind him, his brother Fang Jing's increasingly muffled breathing was also heard by him. What he did not notice in his previous life, he was able to see clearly in this life. This was the keen insight brought about by 500 years of life experience. He suddenly thought of his uncle and aunt. They really had some tricks up their sleeves. They assigned Shen Suelai to monitor him, and assigned an old nanny to his brother. In fact, there were other differences in treatment in the details of life. This was all done intentionally. It was to provoke the anger in his brother's heart, and to provoke the brotherly relationship between him and his brother. The world did not worry about scarcity, but about inequality. In his previous life, he had too little experience, and his brother was too stupid and naive, so he was successfully provoked by his uncle and aunt. Since his rebirth, the awakening ceremony was about to begin. The situation seemed difficult to reverse, but with Fang Yuan's demonic methods and wisdom, it was not impossible to change. This brother could be completely suppressed and subdued. Shen Suelai, a little girl, could be added into the harem early. There were also his uncle and aunt, the clan leader, and the elders. There were at least hundreds of ways to beat them. But, I don't want to do this. Fang Yuan sighed leisurely in his heart. So what if he was his biological brother? There was no familial love to speak of. He was just an outsider, so it was fine to let him go. No matter how beautiful Shen Suelai was, without love and loyalty, she was just a corpse. Added into the harem? She was not worthy. Even if it was his uncle and aunt, the clan leader, and the elders, they were all passers-by in his life. Why did he have to rack his brain and waste his energy to beat these passers-by? Hee. As long as they did not hinder his journey, then he would play with his own eggs. He would not even bother to step on them. Chapter 4. The morning sun rose, its rays shining brightly. The mountain fog was not very thick, and was easily penetrated by the sword-like sunlight. More than 115-year-old youths gathered in front of the clan pavilion. The clan pavilion was located in the center of the village. It was 5 stories high, with curved eaves and was heavily guarded. In front of the pavilion was the square, where the tablets of the ancestors of the Guyue were enshrined. Every generation's patriarch also lived here. Whenever there was a major ceremony or an unexpected event, the patriarch would gather the elders here to discuss. This was the center of power of the entire village. Very good, all of you are here on time. Today is the awakening ceremony, a major turning point in your lives. Without further ado, follow me. The one in charge of this trip was the academy elder. His hair and beard were all white, and he was spirited as he led the youths into the clan pavilion. But they did not go upstairs. Instead, they went down through the entrance of the hall. Following the well-made stone stairs, they entered the underground cave. The youths all gasped in admiration. The underground cave was magnificent. The stalactites gave off 7 colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue and purple. The colors shone on the faces of the youths, like a rainbow. Fang Yuan was in the middle of the crowd, quietly observing everything. He thought to himself, hundreds of years ago, the Guyue clan migrated from the Middle Plains to the southern border, and settled here at Qing Mao Mountain. They took a fancy to the spirit spring in this underground cave. This spirit spring produces large amounts of yuan stone, and can be said to be the foundation of the Guyue village. After a few hundred steps, it got darker and darker, and they could hear the sound of water. Turning a corner, an underground river about 3 feet wide appeared in front of them. The colorful lights of the stalactites had completely disappeared. But in the darkness, the river emitted a faint blue light, like a galaxy in the night sky. The river flowed from the dark depths of the cave. It was crystal clear, and they could even see the swimming fish, aquatic plants, and the sand and stones at the bottom of the river. On the other side of the river was a sea of flowers. This was the moon orchid that the Guyue clan had specially cultivated. Its petals were like crescent moons, showing a beautiful and elegant blue-pink color. The stem of the flower was like jade, and the center of the flower was shining like a pearl under the light. At first glance, in the dark background, the sea of flowers by the riverside looked like a large blue and green carpet dotted with countless pearls. Moon orchid is an ingredient for many GU worms. This sea of flowers can be said to be the family's largest breeding ground. Fang Yuan was well aware of this. So beautiful. So beautiful. The youngsters' horizons had been broadened. Their eyes lit up, and they were both excited and nervous. Okay, now listen to me. The person I call will cross the river and go to the other side. He would go as far as he could. Of course, the farther, the better. Are you all clear? The elder said. Understood. The youths responded. Actually, before coming here, he had heard from his family and seniors that the further he went, the better his aptitude would be, and the greater his future achievements would be. Guyue, Chen Bo the elder pointed out the first person on the list. Although the river was wide, it was not deep. It only reached the youth's knees. Chen Bo's expression was solemn as he stepped into the sea of flowers by the riverside. Immediately, he felt an invisible pressure, as if there was an invisible wall in front of him, preventing him from moving forward. Just as he was struggling to move forward, a speck of light suddenly appeared in the sea of flowers by his feet. The speck of light was very thin, and it was a plain white color. The light gathered towards Chen Bo and entered his body. Chen Bo immediately felt the pressure decrease. That invisible wall suddenly became soft. He gritted his teeth and walked forward, forcing his way in. After 3 steps, the pressure in front of him increased again. Just like before, it was like a wall, and he could not go any further. Seeing this, the elder sighed, and while recording, he said, Guyue, Chen Bo, 3 steps, no Gu master aptitude. Next, Guyue, Zhao Xie. Chen Bo's face turned pale, and he gritted his teeth as he crossed the river and returned to his original position. Without aptitude, he could only live as a mortal, and would only have the lowest position in the clan. His body was on the verge of collapse. The blow was too great, and it was equivalent to killing his life's hope. Many people gave him pitiful gazes, but even more people paid attention to the second young man who reached the other shore. Unfortunately, this young man could only advance 4 steps, and similarly had no aptitude. Not everyone had the aptitude to cultivate. Normally speaking, 5 out of 10 people could cultivate, and that was already not bad. In the Guyue clan, this ratio was even higher, reaching 6 people. This was because Guyue's ancestor, who was the first-generation clan leader, was a famous legendary expert. Because of his cultivation, his bloodline contained the genes to bear the burden of strength. Guyue clansmen had his bloodline, so their aptitude was generally higher. 2 consecutive cases of no aptitude made the other elders who were observing in secret have ugly expressions. Even the old and wise Guyue clan leader frowned slightly. At this moment, the academy elder shouted the third name, Guyue Morbei. Here. A horse-faced young man dressed in linen robes shouted softly, and stepped out of the crowd. He was tall, and much thicker than others of his age. He had a valiant aura about him. He crossed the river in 2 to 3 steps, and stepped onto the other shore. 10 steps, 20 steps, 30 steps. Faint light entered his body one after another. He walked all the way to the 36th step, and finally he could not go any further. The young men on the other shore were dumbfounded. The academy elder shouted happily, Good, Guyue Morbei, B-grade aptitude. Come here, let me see your prime val C. Guyue Morbei returned to the academy elder's side. The latter stretched out his hand, and placed it on the young man's shoulder. He closed his eyes and examined it, and then retracted his hand. He nodded and recorded on a piece of paper, Guyue Morbei, prime val C 6 to 6%, can be nurtured vigorously. The aptitude, from top to bottom, was divided into 4 grades, A, B, C, and D. A D-grade aptitude youngster, after 3 years of nurturing, can become a rank 1 veteran GU master, becoming the clan's cornerstone. A C-grade aptitude youngster, after 2 years of nurturing, would most likely become a rank 2 GU master, becoming the backbone of the clan. A B-grade talent needed to be taken care of. They are often nurtured as future clan elders, and after 6 to 7 years, they can become rank 3 GU masters. As for a grade aptitude, even if one appeared, it would be the entire family's fortune. With careful care and resources, he would be able to become a rank 4 GU master in around 10 years. At that time, he would be able to compete for the position of clan leader. In other words, as long as this Guyue Morbei grew up, he would become the clan elder of the Guyue clan in the future. It was no wonder that the academy elder was so happy that he laughed, and the elders who were secretly watching all let out a sigh of relief. Then, they all cast envious glances at one of the elders. This elder also had a long face. It was Guyue Morbei's grandfather, Guyue Mo Chen. His face was already filled with a smile, and he looked at his old rival provocatively. How is it? My grandson is not bad, right? Guyue Lian. Clan elder Guyue Lian had a head of red hair, and at this moment, he snorted coldly and did not reply, his face gloomy and ugly. An hour later, half of the youngsters had already stepped into the sea of flowers, and there were many C and D grade aptitudes. Of course, almost half of them had no aptitudes at all. Sigh, the bloodline is getting thinner, and in these years, the clan has not produced many rank 4 experts to strengthen the bloodline. The 4th generation clan leader was the only rank 5 expert, but in the end, he perished together with the flower wine monk, not leaving behind any descendants. The Guyue clan's younger generation's aptitudes are getting weaker and weaker. The clan leader sighed deeply. At this moment, the academy elder shouted, Guyue Cheng. Hearing this name, the elders all looked at Guyue Lian. This was Guyue Lian's grandson. Guyue Cheng was short, his face was full of pockmarks, he clenched his fists, his face was full of sweat, and he seemed especially nervous. He stepped onto the opposite shore, and the light dots entered his body, he walked 36 steps in a row before stopping. Another B grade. The academy elder shouted. The youngsters were in an uproar, and all cast envious glances at Guo Cheng. Ha ha ha, 36 steps, 36 steps. Guo Lian shouted, and stared at Guo Mo Chen to show off. This time, it was Guo Mo Chen's turn to be livid. Guo Cheng. In the crowd, Fang Yuan thoughtfully rubbed his chin. In his memory, because he cheated in the awakening ceremony, he was severely punished by the clan. In reality, his aptitude was only C grade, but his grandfather Guo Lian had falsified it for him, so he had the false impression of a B grade aptitude. In fact, if he wanted to cheat, Fang Yuan had dozens of plans in his mind, and some plans were even more perfect than Guo Cheng's. If he showed B grade or a grade aptitude, he would definitely be heavily nurtured by the clan. But firstly, Fang Yuan's rebirth time was too short, and with his current situation, it was hard for him to prepare any cheating methods. Secondly, even if he cheated successfully, his cultivation speed in the future would not be able to be concealed, and it would still be exposed. But this Guo Cheng was different. His grandfather was Guo Lian, one of the two most powerful elders in the clan, and he could cover for him. Guo Lian and Guo Mo Chen have always been enemies, and these two elders are the two biggest factions in the clan. In order to suppress his opponent, he needed his grandson to have outstanding aptitude. It was also because he was covering for him that Guo Cheng was able to hide it for a while. In my memory, if not for that accident, I would not have been exposed. Fang Yuan's eyes flashed, and he thought about how to use this to maximize his benefits. If he exposed it on the spot, although he would receive a little reward from the clan, he would offend the powerful Guo Lian, so he could not do it. In the short term, he could not extort money. Because his strength was too low, he would bring disaster upon himself. As he was thinking, he suddenly heard the academy elder call out his name, Guo Fang Yuan. Chapter 5. In an instant, the surroundings became quiet as countless gazes landed on him. This is getting more and more exciting. Fang Yuan laughed in his heart. Under everyone's gaze, he crossed the river and stepped onto the other side. Immediately, he felt a layer of pressure. This pressure came from the spirit spring in the depths of the flower sea. The spirit spring produced primeval energy, and because the primeval energy was too dense, it caused the pressure. But soon, from the flowers around Fang Yuan's feet, a light dot rose. The light dot floated and covered Fang Yuan's entire body, before entering his body. This is the Hope Gu. Fang Yuan muttered in his heart. Although the person in charge did not explain, he knew it clearly. Every speck of light was a Gu. The Gu was called Hope. One of the most ancient legends was about the Hope Gu. Legend has it that when this world was just formed, it was a desolate land where wild beasts roamed. The first human appeared, his name was Renzu. He ate raw meat and drank blood, living a difficult life. Especially there was a group of wild beasts called predicaments. They loved the taste of Renzu and wanted to eat him. Renzu did not have a rock-like body, nor did he have the sharp claws of wild beasts. How could he fight against these predicaments? His food source was unstable, he had to hide all day, staying at the bottom of the food chain, he could barely survive. At this time, 3 Gu came to Renzu and said, "As long as you use your life to support us, we will help you get through this." Renzu had no choice, he could only agree to these 3 Gu. He first used his youth to nurture the biggest Gu among the 3, and that Gu gave him strength. With strength, Renzu's life started to improve, he started to have a stable food source, he had the strength to protect himself. He was brave and ruthless, defeating many predicaments. But soon, he suffered. In the end, he found that strength was not omnipotent, it needed to be recovered and nurtured, it could not be squandered. And to the entire predicament group, his strength alone was too small. Renzu pondered over this painful experience and decided to use his prime years to nurture the most beautiful Gu among the 3. Thus, the second Gu gave him wisdom. Renzu had wisdom, he learned to think and reflect, and started to accumulate experience. He found that using wisdom was often more effective than using strength. Relying on his wisdom and strength, he conquered many targets that he couldn't conquer before and killed even more predicaments. They ate the flesh and drank the blood of the predicaments to survive tenaciously. However, good things didn't last long. The Ren ancestor grew older and older. This was because he had given the youngster and middle-aged man to strength Gu and wisdom Gu. When people get old, their muscles atrophy and their brains slow down. "O human, what else can you give us? You have nothing left to offer us." After the strength Gu and wisdom Gu realized this, they left heartlessly. Renzu lost his power and intelligence, and was discovered by the predicament. He was surrounded by the beast horde. He was old and couldn't run anymore. His teeth had all fallen off, and he couldn't even chew wild fruits and vegetables. He powerlessly collapsed to the ground, surrounded by the densely packed predicaments. His heart was filled with despair. Right at this time, the third Gu said to him, "O human, worship me, I can help you escape your predicament." Renzu shed tears. "Gu, what else can I have? Look, strength Gu and wisdom Gu have abandoned me. And I only have old age left. Compared to youngster and middle-aged, old age isn't worth mentioning, but if I worship you with my old age, my life will end immediately. Although I am surrounded by the predicaments now, I won't die anytime soon. I want to live a little longer, even if it's just a second. So leave, I can't worship you anymore." That Gu said, "Among the 3 Gu, my request is the smallest. O human, you only need to give me your heart. Then I will give you my heart." Renzu said, "But O Gu, what else can you give me? In this predicament, even if strength Gu and wisdom Gu return to me, they can't change it." Compared to strength Gu, this Gu was the weakest, it was only a small dot of light. Compared to wisdom Gu, this Gu was the dimmest, it could only emit a weak white light and was not beautiful at all. But when the human gave his heart to this Gu suddenly shone with limitless light. In this light, the predicaments screamed in fear, "This is the Hope Gu, retreat, we predicaments are most afraid of hope." The predicament beasts immediately retreated in panic. Ren Zhu was dumbstruck. From that moment on, he knew when facing a predicament, give your heart to hope. And at this time, the Hope Gu turned into a beam of light and entered Fang Yuan's body. Because of the external pressure, they quickly gathered at Fang Yuan's abdomen, forming a ball 3 inches below his navel. Fang Yuan immediately felt the pressure lessen. He took a step forward and continued forward. With every step he took, there would be Hope Gu flying out from the sea of flowers, entering his body and joining the ball of light. The ball of light became bigger and brighter. But the person in charge on the other side of the river frowned. The number of Hope Gu seems to be too little. Many elders who had been secretly observing Fang Yuan saw this scene and their hearts sank. The clan leader also frowned. This was definitely not an A-grade talent. Fang Yuan withstood the pressure and continued forward. Below 10 steps, they have no cultivation talent. Between 10 to 20 steps, they have D-grade talent. Between 20 to 30 steps, they have C-grade talent. Between 30 to 40 steps, they have B-grade talent. Between 40 to 50 steps, they have A-grade talent. So far, I have walked 23 steps. 24, 25, 26, 27. Fang Yuan silently counted in his heart. When he reached 27 steps, he seemed to hear a boom. The ball of light between his 2 kidneys in his abdomen had accumulated to its limit and suddenly exploded. This explosion only happened within Fang Yuan's body. Outsiders could not feel it at all. Only Fang Yuan felt an earth-shattering mystery at that moment. In an instant, all the hairs on his body stood up, his pores closed tightly, his mind was like a drawn bowstring, suddenly tensing up. Immediately after, his mind suddenly went blank, his entire body limp, as if he had fallen into the clouds. His heartstrings relaxed, his sweat pores smoothed, and all the pores on his body opened up. In an instant, his entire body was covered in a thin layer of sweat. This process, although it sounded long, was actually very short. It came quickly, and left suddenly. Fang Yuan was in a daze for only a moment, then he came back to his senses. He secretly looked into his body, and found that below his belly button, in the middle of his 2 kidneys, an aperture had appeared out of nowhere. Opening the aperture was a success. This was the hope of longevity. Chapter 6. The aperture was mysterious. Even though it was in Fang Yuan's body, it was not in the same space as his organs. You could say it was infinitely big, or infinitely small. Some called it the Zifu, some called it the Hua Kai, but more people called it the unveils aperture. The entire aperture was spherical, the surface of the aperture flowing with white light. It was a layer of light. It was the layer of light that formed when the Hope GU exploded. It was because of this layer of light that the aperture did not collapse. Inside the aperture was naturally the unveils sea. The seawater was smooth like a mirror, showing a jade-green color, but it was extremely thick, with a copper luster. This was the condensation of green copper unveils essence that only rank 1 GU masters had, commonly known as the Bronze Sea. The sea was less than half of the aperture's height, only 44%. This was the limitation of a sea-grade talent. Every drop of seawater was unveils essence, representing the condensation of Fang Yuan's spirit, symbolizing the life potential he had accumulated over the past 15 years. GU masters used this unveils essence to activate their GU worms. This meant that from this moment onwards, Fang Yuan had officially entered the ranks of a rank 1 GU master. The aperture was opened, and no more Hope GU entered Fang Yuan's body. Fang Yuan retracted his mind, feeling the pressure in front of him was as thick as a wall, and he could not take another step. Just like my previous life. He smiled indifferently at this result. Can't he walk anymore? The academy elder held on to a tiny bit of hope, shouting from the other side of the river. Fang Yuan turned around and walked back, using his actions to answer him. At this moment, even the youths reacted. Immediately, there was a buzz, and the crowd was in an uproar. What? Fang Yuan walked 27 steps. So he's only a C-grade talent. Unbelievable, he's such a genius, but only a C-grade. The crowd was in an uproar. Brother. In the crowd, Guo Fangjing raised his head, looking at Fang Yuan, who had just returned from the river, in shock. He could not believe the scene in front of him. His brother was only a C-grade talent. He had always thought that his brother would be an A-grade talent. No, not only him, his uncle, aunt, and many others in the clan thought so too. But now, the result was like this. Damn it, it's only a C-grade. The GUU clan leader secretly clenched his fists and sighed deeply, his disappointment evident on his face. Some of the clan elders who were watching from the shadows frowned, some lowered their heads in disgust, and some sighed at the sky. Could there be a mistake in the test? How is this possible? This method is extremely accurate. Moreover, with us constantly watching, it will be difficult to cheat. But how do you explain his previous performance and talent? The higher the aptitude of the primordial sea, the more extraordinary the characteristics will be. For example, intelligence, comprehension, memory, strength, agility, and so on. But conversely, these characteristics don't necessarily mean that one's aptitude is high. Everything depends on the results of the test. The greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. The Guo clan is getting worse with each generation. The ice-cold river water soaked her socks, and it was bone-chilling. Fang Yuan was still walking expressionlessly. As the distance got closer, he could clearly see the solemn expression of the academy elder, and he could keenly sense the gazes of hundreds of youths. The gazes were filled with surprise, shock, mockery, schadenfreude, realization, and indifference. The exact same scene reminded Fang Yuan of his previous life. At that time, he felt as if the sky had collapsed. He lost his footing and fell while crossing the river. He was drenched and despondent. But no one helped him up. These disappointed, indifferent expressions and gazes were like sharp knives cutting into his heart. His thoughts were in a mess, and his chest was aching. It was like falling from the clouds to the ground. The higher he stood, the harder he fell. But, in this life, looking at such a scene again, Fang Yuan's heart was extremely calm. He thought of the legend. When difficulties come, one must give one's heart to hope. Now, this hope was within him. Although this hope was not great, it was better than those who had no aptitude for cultivation. If others were disappointed because of this, then so be it. What could he do? What did the disappointment of others have to do with him? The most important thing was that he had hope in his heart. 500 years of life had made him understand one thing: the most interesting part of a person's life was the process of pursuing one's dreams. There was no need to expect others to not be disappointed or to like you. Walk your own path, and let others be disappointed and dislike you. Sigh. The academy elder sighed deeply, and shouted, "Next, Guo Fangjing." But no one answered. "Guo Fangjing," the clan leader shouted, his voice reverberating in the cave. "Ah! I'm here, I'm here." Fangjing broke free from his shock, and hurriedly ran out. Unfortunately, he stumbled and fell. With a splash, he coincidentally rolled into the river. Instantly, everyone laughed. The Fang brothers are only SOSO. The clan leader of the Guo clan snorted coldly. He was starting to feel annoyed with Guo Fangjing. This is so embarrassing. Fangjing struggled a few times in the river, but the bottom of the river was too slippery, and he could not stand up. The result of his efforts was that he became even more clumsy. He heard waves of laughter in his ears, and this made him even more flustered. But at this moment, he suddenly felt a strong force pulling him up. His head finally left the water, and his body regained its balance. He wiped his face awkwardly, and looked again. It was his brother, Fang Yuan, who was grabbing his collar and lifting him up. "Brother." He opened his mouth to speak, but all he got in return was choking on the water, which led to another bout of violent coughing. "Ha ha, the Fang family's brothers in hardship." Someone on the bank laughed. The laughter grew louder, and the academy elder did not stand up to stop them. He frowned deeply, and his heart was filled with disappointment. Fangjing did not know what to do, and heard his brother's voice in his ear, "Go, the road ahead will be very exciting." Fangjing could not help but open his mouth in shock. At this moment, Fang Yuan's back was facing the crowd, so the people on the bank could not see clearly. But Fangjing could clearly feel Fang Yuan's calmness. When he spoke, the corner of his mouth even slightly curled up, revealing a deep and playful smile. "It's obviously only a C-grade talent. Why is brother so calm?" Unconsciously, Fangjing's heart was filled with doubts. Fang Yuan did not say anything more, and patted Fangjing's back, and turned to leave. Fangjing's expression was blank, and he walked towards the sea of flowers. "I did not expect brother to be so calm. If it was me, I'm afraid." He lowered his head, and walked forward unconsciously. But he did not know that he was performing a miraculous performance. When he woke up, he was already standing in the depths of the sea of flowers, a distance that no one had reached before. 43 steps. Oh my God, a grade talent. The academy elder lost his composure and shouted. "A grade, it's actually a grade talent. It's been 3 years, the Guo clan has finally produced a genius with a grade talent." The clan elders who were watching in secret also shouted at the same time, greatly losing their composure. Yes, the Guo Fangjing bloodline was originally separated from our Kai bloodline, so this Guo Fangjing will be adopted by our Kai bloodline. Guo Lian immediately announced. "How is that possible? You, Kai Lian old ghost, what virtue or ability do you have? But your ability to mislead people is not bad. Why don't you give this child to me, Guo Morchen, to raise?" Guo Morchen roared as if he had been electrocuted. "Everyone stop arguing. No one can raise this child better than me," the clan leader, raising him personally. Whoever has an objection is opposing me, Guyue Bo. Guyue clan leader's eyes were scarlet red, and his previous disappointment and dispiritedness were swept away. His entire person had gone mad. Chapter 7. Very quickly, a week had passed. Man is the spirit of all living beings, Gu is the essence of heaven and earth. In this world, there are thousands and tens of thousands of Gu, countless of them. They live all around us, in the mines, in the grass, and even in the bodies of wild beasts. In the process of human reproduction, our ancestors gradually discovered the mysteries of Gu worms. Those who have already opened their apertures and used their own primeval essence to feed, refine, and control these Gu to achieve their goals, we call them Gu masters. And all of you have already successfully opened your apertures in the awakening ceremony 7 days ago, condensing your primeval C, and are now rank 1 Gu masters. In the village's academy, the academy elder was speaking with fervor and assurance. In front of him sat 57 youths, each of them listening attentively. The mysteries and power of Gu masters had long been engraved into the hearts of the youths. Thus, everything that the clan elder had said deeply attracted them. At this time, a youth raised his hand, and after getting permission from the elder, he stood up and asked, "Sir Elder, I have known since I was young that Gu masters are divided into rank 1, rank 2, and so on. Can you explain in detail to us?" Master Gua nodded, gesturing for the youth to sit down. Gu masters have a total of 9 realms, from bottom to top. They are rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, all the way to rank 9. Every rank realm is divided into initial stage, middle stage, upper stage, and peak stage, 4 small realms. You have just become Gu masters, and are all rank 1 initial stage. If you work hard in your cultivation will naturally increase, and it is even possible to advance to rank 2 or rank 3. Of course, the higher the talent, the higher the possibility of advancement. D-grade talent, the primeval C takes up 20 to 30% of the aperture, and can usually cultivate to rank 1 or rank 2. C-grade talent, the primeval C takes up 40 to 50% of the aperture, and usually stops at rank 2. Only a few are lucky enough to break through to rank 3 initial stage. B-grade talent, the primeval C takes up 60 to 70% of the aperture, and can cultivate to rank 3 or even rank 4. A grade talent, the primeval C is sufficient, and the aperture is formed. This kind of person naturally has the highest talent, and is most suitable for Gu master cultivation, and can cultivate to rank 5. As for Gu masters above rank 6, each one is a legend, and I am not too sure about the specifics. Our Guyue tribe has never produced a rank 6 Gu master, but we have had rank 5 and rank 4 Gu masters. The youth's ears perked up, their eyes shining brightly as they listened. Many people couldn't help but look at Gua Fangjing, who was sitting upright and still in the first row. This was an A-grade aptitude. Their eyes were filled with envy and jealousy. At the same time, there were also some gazes that drifted towards the corner of the last row of the classroom. In the corner by the window, Guyue and Fang Yuan were sleeping soundly on the table. "Look, he's still sleeping," someone said softly. "You've been sleeping for a week, haven't you recovered yet?" Someone curled their lips. "That's not all. I heard that he doesn't even return at night and loiters outside the village. Some people saw him more than once, hugging a jar of wine at night, drunk outside. Fortunately, the area around the village has been purged in recent years, so it's relatively safe." His classmates whispered to each other, and all kinds of rumors quickly spread. Sigh, the blow is indeed too great. He's been known as a genius for so many years, but in the end, he's only a C grade, If that's the case, then it's fine. But that little brother of his was tested to be an A grade, and is now the center of attention, enjoying the best treatment. The little brother is in the sky, and the big brother is on the ground, Listening to the increasingly loud discussions, the academy elders' eyebrows had already formed a knot. In the entire classroom, all the youths were sitting upright and still, glowing with vitality. Because of this, the sleeping Fang Yuan on the table was even more eye-catching. It's already been a week, and he's still so dispirited. I made an error in judgment. How could this kind of person be a genius? The elder snorted coldly in his heart. Regarding this situation, he had already told Fang Yuan many times. But it was to no avail, and Fang Yuan continued to do as he pleased. He slept through every class, causing the elder in charge of teaching to have a headache and frustration. Forget it, he's just a C grade. He can't even take this little blow. If he were to be nurtured with this kind of temperament, he wouldn't be of much use, and would instead be a waste of the clan's resources. The elder was extremely disappointed in Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan was only a C-grade talent, and in comparison, his brother Fangjing had an A-grade talent. This was the person who was worth the clan spending a lot of effort to nurture. As the academy elder thought, he continued the topic from before. In the history of our clan, there have been many strong people. Among them, there were 2 rank 5 strong people. One was the first-generation clan leader, our ancestor, and he was the one who founded the Guyue village. The other was the 4th-generation clan leader. His talent was outstanding, and he cultivated all the way to the realm of a rank 5 GU master. If not for that despicable and shameless demon, the flower wine monk's sneak attack, he might have even advanced to rank 6 GU master. Sigh. At this point, the Guyue clan leader sighed deeply. Below the podium, the youths started to shout with righteous indignation. It's all because of that flower wine monk, he's too cunning. It's a pity that our 4th-generation clan leader was kind-hearted and died young. I only hate that I wasn't born a few hundred years earlier, or else when I see that demon, I'll definitely expose his ugly face. The story of the 4th-generation clan leader and the flower wine monk, everyone in the Guyue clan knew of it. The flower wine monk was also a rank 5 GU master, a rapist who had done evil for many years, and was famous in the demonic path at that time. Hundreds of years ago, he fled to Qingmaro Mountain and attempted to commit a crime in the Guyue village, but was seen through by the 4th-generation clan leader. After an earth-shattering battle, the flower wine monk was beaten to the point of kneeling and begging for mercy. The 4th-generation clan leader was kind and merciful, and decided to spare his life. In the end, the flower wine monk suddenly launched a sneak attack and heavily injured the 4th-generation clan leader. The clan leader was furious, and killed the flower wine monk on the spot, but he died from his heavy injuries and passed away. Thus, in the hearts of all the Guyue clan members, the 4th-generation clan leader was a hero who sacrificed himself for the village. The flower wine monk Awakened by the condemnation in the academy, Fang Yuan opened his sleepy eyes in the corner. He stretched his body, and his heart was full of resentment. This flower wine monk, where did he die? Why haven't I found his inheritance even after looking all around the village? In his memory, about 2 months later, a clan GU master was drunk from a breakup, lying outside the village in a drunken stupor. In the end, the fragrance of the wine attracted a liquor worm. The GU master was overjoyed, and wanted to capture it. The liquor worm hurriedly escaped, and the GU master chased after it. Following the liquor worm's trail, he found a secret cave entrance that led underground. The liquor worm was a very precious GU. This GU master was drunk, and took the risk to enter the cave entrance, coming to the secret underground cave. Then he found the flower wine monk's corpse, and the inheritance he left behind. After the Gu master returned to the village, he reported all his findings, and immediately caused a huge commotion in the clan. And that Gu master also benefited from this, and his cultivation became more and more outstanding, even attracting the lover who had abandoned him to change his mind. He became an influential figure for a time. It's a pity that I only heard the gist of the news, and did not know the exact location. At that time, I did not think that I would be reborn one day. Flower wine monk, where did you die? These days, he had bought a lot of wine, and when night fell, he would wander around the village. He wanted to use the smell of wine to attract the liquor worm. Unfortunately, he did not see the liquor worm, and the result was very disappointing. If I could find that liquor worm and refine it as my vital Gu, it would be much better than the moonlight Gu in the clan. In the blink of an eye, it's already April. Time waits for no man. Fang Yuan sighed, and his gaze turned towards the window. Under the blue sky and white clouds, a verdant mountain range stretched out. Nearby was a bamboo forest. This was the unique spear bamboo of Qing Maro Mountain. Each was as straight as a straight line, and at the same time, the tip was abnormally sharp, like the tip of a spear. In the forest not far away, there was already a new green. The sprouts that came out were yellow and green. From time to time, there would be beautiful colorful sparrows landing on the branches. The spring wind blew, wrapping around the fresh scent of green mountains and clear waters, and blowing it into the world. Unknowingly, the class was nearing its end. The academy elder finally informed, "In this week, I have taught you how to meditate, and examine your own aperture's prime val C. How to meditate, and move the prime val essence in your body. Now, it's time to refine your vital Gu. After this class ends, you will go to the academy's Gu room, and choose your Gu. After choosing your Gu, go home and cultivate. Until you have refined the Gu, then come back to the academy to continue your lessons. At the same time, this is also your first test. Whoever can come out on top will receive a generous reward of 20 yuan stone." Oh! The next moment, the entire academy cheered. Finally, it's time to refine the Gu. Then what Gu should I choose? Fang Yuan's eyes flashed. Chapter 8. A Gu room was set up beside the classroom. The Gu room was not big, only 60 square meters. When a Gu master cultivated, Gu worms were the key to their strength. Once the lesson ended, the excited youths swarmed towards the Gu room. "Line up, come in one by one." An angry voice sounded. There were naturally guards outside the Gu room. The youths went in one by one and came out. It was Fang Yuan's turn to enter the Gu room. The room was huge, the four walls were made into partitions, and these square cubicles were connected to each other. The cubicles were big and small, the big ones were bigger than a casserole, the small ones smaller than a fist. In the densely packed cubicles, there were all kinds of utensils. Some were grey stone basins, some were green jade plates, some were exquisite grass cages, and some were pottery stoves. These utensils contained all kinds of Gu worms. Some Gu worms were silent, but some were very noisy. They made all kinds of sounds, such as squeaking, gurgling, rustling, and so on, forming a symphony of life. Gu worms are also divided into 9 levels, corresponding to the 9 realms of a Gu master. These Gu worms are all rank 1. Fang Yuan looked around and immediately understood. Generally speaking, a rank 1 Gu master could only use rank 1 Gu worms. If they used a higher level Gu worm, the Gu master would have to pay a heavy price. And Gu worms also needed to be fed, and the price of feeding a higher level Gu worm was not something a lower level Gu master could afford. For a new Gu master, unless it was a special situation, they would choose a rank 1 Gu worm for their first refinement. And the first Gu worm that a Gu master refined had great significance. It was called the vital Gu, and was connected to the Gu master's life. Once it died, the Gu master would suffer a heavy loss. Sigh, I was hoping to get the flower wine monk's liquor worm and refine it as my vital Gu. But now, the flower wine monk's corpse is nowhere to be found, and I don't know when I can find it, or if someone else finds it. To be safe, I'll choose a moonlight GU. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart as he walked towards the left wall. On one of the levels slightly above the hole in the wall, there was a row of silver plates. Each plate had a GU worm on it. This GU worm was crystal clear and curved like a moon. It was like a piece of blue crystal, and under the contrast of the silver chassis, it gave off a serene aura. The GU's name was Moonlight, and it was the Guyue clan's guardian GU. Most of the clansmen chose it as their vital GU. It was not a natural GU worm, but it was cultivated by the secret method of the Guyue clan. It could not be found anywhere else, and it could be said to be the symbol of the Guyue clan. They were both rank 1 Moonlight GU, but the difference was minute. Fang Yuan randomly picked one and held it in his hand. The Moonlight GU was very light as a thin piece of paper. It only occupied the center of his palm and was about the size of an ordinary jade pendant. Fang Yuan held it in his hand. Through it, he could see the lines on his palm that had been concealed. After taking one last look and finding that there were no problems, Fang Yuan put it in his pocket and left the GU room. There was a long queue outside the GU room, and when a young man saw Fang Yuan walking out, he quickly ran into the GU room excitedly. If it was someone else, their first reaction would be to take the GU worm home and quickly refine it. Fang Yuan dug into his pocket was not in a hurry to do so. Yuan stone fragments, was still thinking about the liquor worm. The liquor worm was even more precious. To buy wine, and then wander around the village to search, was a specialty intending to attract the liquor worm. It was not as helpful to the GU master as the liquor middle-aged fat man with an oily face. After leaving the GU room, after these days, went straight to the wine shop. Remembered Fang Yuan. Shopkeeper, customer, give me 2 jars of aged wine. As he greeted, he stretched out his thick and short fat hand and skillfully wiped away Fang Yuan's yuan stone fragments. He then weighed it in his hand, and felt that the weight was not bad. The smile on the shopkeeper's face became more amiable. Yuan stone was this world's currency, used to measure the value of all goods. At the same time, it was a condensation of the essence of heaven and earth, and could be used by itself to help the GU master cultivate better. It had both monetary and commodity attributes, very similar to gold on Earth. Earth had a single gold standard, and this world had a single yuan stone standard. Compared to gold, yuan stone's purchasing power was quite shocking. However, no matter how much yuan stone there was, it could not support Fang Yuan's continuous consumption. 2 jars of wine a day, it's been a whole 7 days. The yuan stone that I saved up is almost all gone. Carrying the 2 jars of wine out of the wine shop, Fang Yuan frowned slightly. Once you become a GU master, you can directly extract pure Primeval essence from the yuan stone to replenish the Primeval sea in the aperture. Thus, to GU masters, yuan stone was not only a currency, but also a cultivation aid. With enough yuan stone, the cultivation speed could increase by a lot, and this could more or less make up for some of the shortcomings in aptitude. Tomorrow I won't have any yuan stone to buy wine, but the liquor worm still hasn't shown up. Do I really have to refine the Moonlight GU into a lifebound GU? Fang Yuan was not resigned. Walking out of the tavern, Fang Yuan held 2 jars of wine in his hands, thinking as he walked, the academy elder said that the first person to refine a lifebound GU in this examination will get 20 yuan stone as a reward. Right now, I'm afraid many people are working hard at home to refine GU worms and fight for first place. Unfortunately, refining a lifebound GU is a great test of aptitude. Those with good aptitude have great advantages. With my C-grade aptitude, without any other tricks, I have no hope of winning. At this moment, Guyue Fangzheng's voice came from behind. Brother, you really came to the tavern to get drunk again. Follow me, uncle and aunt want to see you. Fang Yuan stopped and turned around. He found that his brother was no longer talking with his head lowered like before. The 2 brothers' eyes met. A gust of wind blew, blowing the elder brother's messy black hair and blowing the younger brother's clothes. In the short span of a month, everything had changed. The awakening ceremony a week ago was a huge change for both the elder brother and the younger brother. The elder brother, Fang Yuan, fell from the clouds, the halo of a genius ruthlessly taken away. The younger brother, on the other hand, began to shine, like a rising star. This change, for the younger brother, Guyue Fangzheng, was like the world had turned upside down. He finally tasted what his brother had felt in the past, being entrusted with hope by others, being looked at with envy and jealousy. He felt as if he had suddenly moved from a dark corner to a heaven filled with light. Every day when he woke up, he felt as if he was in a beautiful dream. The difference in treatment was like heaven and earth, and he still found it hard to believe. At the same time, there was a strong sense of discomfort. Discomfort. All of a sudden, he went from being unknown to being closely watched and pointed at. Sometimes, when Fang Jing was walking on the road, he would hear people talking about him and praising him. He would feel his face heat up and be at a loss of what to do. He would avoid eye contact and almost forget where he was going. In the first 10 days, Fang Jing inexplicably lost a lot of weight, but he was more energetic. From the deepest part of his heart, something called confidence began to grow. This is how Big Brother used to feel. It was wonderful and painful. He could not help but think of his brother, Fang Yuan. Facing such discussions and attention, how did his brother deal with them in the past? He subconsciously began to imitate Fang Yuan, pretending to be expressionless, but soon found that he was not cut out for it. Sometimes in school, a girl's shout would make him blush. On the road, the teasing of the aunties made him flee many times. He was like a baby learning how to walk, stumbling to adapt to his new life. In the process, he could not help but hear rumors about his brother. He was depressed, became a drunkard, did not return home at night, and slept in school. At first, he was very shocked. His brother, such a powerful and talented existence, had actually become like this. But slowly, he began to understand. His brother was also a normal person. After experiencing such a setback and blow, it was inevitable that he would be depressed. Along with this understanding, Fang Jing faintly felt an indescribable sense of joy. This feeling of joy was something he did not want to admit, but it did exist. His brother, who was praised as a genius, who used to suppress him like a shadow, was now in such a depressed state. From another perspective, this was proof of his own growth, wasn't it? He was outstanding, this was the truth. Therefore, seeing Fang Yuan carrying the wine jar, his hair in a mess, and his clothes in disarray, Fang Jing heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. His breathing inexplicably became much more relaxed. But he said, "Brother, you can't drink anymore. You can't go on like this. You don't know how worried those who care about you are. You have to pull yourself together." Fang Yuan was expressionless and did not speak. The two brothers looked at each other. Younger brother Fang Jing's eyes were shining, revealing a sharp look. Older brother Fang Yuan's eyes, however, were dark and deep, like an ancient lake. Such a pair of eyes made Fang Jing feel an inexplicable pressure. After staring at each other for a short while, he subconsciously shifted his gaze to the other side. But when he realized it, a wave of anger rose in his heart. A wave of anger towards himself. What's wrong with me? I don't even have the courage to look at my brother in the eye. I've changed, I've completely changed. As he thought of this, his gaze sharpened and swept over again. But Fang Yuan was no longer looking at him. Instead, he carried a jar of wine in one hand and walked past him. His calm voice was heard, "What are you waiting for? Let's go." Fang Jing's breathing became erratic. He no longer had a place to vent the anger that had accumulated in his heart. This made him feel an indescribable depression. Seeing that his brother had walked far away, he could only hurry up and follow. But this time, his head was no longer lowered. Instead, it was raised to face the setting sun. His gaze was fixated on his own feet, stepping on his brother Fang Yuan's shadow step by step. Chapter 9. The red sun was setting in the west, but it had not completely set. There was still light in the sky, but everything seemed to be covered in a layer of grey. Looking through the window, he could see the mountains in the distance gradually closing in on the heavy darkness. The living room was dim, and uncle and aunt were sitting on the main seats. Their expressions were shrouded in a layer of shadow, and could not be seen clearly. Seeing the 2 jars of wine that Fang Yuan had brought along, Uncle Gua's brows furrowed into a knot. He said, "Time flies, and you are already 15 years old. Both of you have GU master aptitude, especially Fang Jing. Uncle and aunt are very proud of you. I will give each of you 6 yuan stones, take them. Refining GU consumes a lot of primeval essence, so you will need these yuan stones. Saying so, a servant came over and gave Fang Yuan and Fang Jing each a small bag. Fang Yuan kept the bag, remaining silent. Fang Jing immediately opened the bag and saw 6 oval-shaped white yuan stones inside. Immediately, his face was filled with gratitude, and he stood up from his seat, bowing to uncle and aunt. "Thank you, uncle and aunt. I need yuan stones to replenish my primeval essence. You've raised me up, and I'll remember your kindness in my heart, and I'll never forget it." Uncle smiled and nodded. Aunt quickly waved her hand, and said to Fang Jing warmly, sit down, sit down. Although you two are not our biological children, we have always raised you as our own. We are also proud of you for having such a promising future. Sigh, we do not have any children, and sometimes we wish that you two could really become our children. That would be great. There was a deep meaning behind these words. Fang Jing did not understand, but Fang Yuan frowned slightly. As expected, Uncle continued, I have discussed with your aunt, and we want to let you two be adopted into our family, and become a real family. Fang Jing, I wonder if you are willing? Fang Jing was stunned for a moment, but his face quickly lit up with joy, and he readily agreed. To be honest, ever since my parents passed away, I've been longing for a family reunion. It's great to be able to become a family with uncle and aunt. His aunt's expression relaxed and she smiled. Then you are our good son. Are you still going to call us uncle and aunt? Father, mother. Fang Jing came to a sudden realization and quickly corrected himself. Uncle and aunt both laughed. Good son, it's not in vain that we've raised you since you were 5 years old. We've raised you for 10 whole years. His aunt wiped away her tears. His uncle looked at the silent Fang Yuan and said gently, Fang Yuan, what do you think? Fang Yuan shook his head in silence. Brother. Guo Fangjing wanted to persuade him, but was stopped by his uncle. His uncle's tone didn't change as he continued, since that's the case, nephew Fang Yuan, we won't force you. But you're already 15 years old, it's time for you to start a family. This way, it'll be easier for you to inherit the Fang family's bloodline. I've prepared 200 pieces of yuan stone for you, consider it your financial support. 200 pieces of yuan stone. Fangjing's eyes widened. He had never seen so many pieces of yuan stone before, and he couldn't help but reveal an envious expression. Who knew that Fang Yuan would still shake his head? Fang Jing was puzzled, but his uncle's expression changed slightly, and his aunt's face darkened. Uncle, aunt, if there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Fang Yuan didn't give them a chance to speak. After saying that, he picked up the wine jar and walked out of the hall. Fang Jing stood up. Father, mother, brother can't figure it out right now. Why don't you let me persuade him? His uncle waved his hand and let out a long sigh. Sigh, this can't be forced. I'm already very happy that you have the heart. Someone, take young Master Fang Jing away and make sure he stays well. Then I'll take my leave. After Fang Jing left, the hall fell into silence. The sun had completely set, and the hall became even darker. After a while, his uncle's cold voice came from the darkness. It seems that little bastard Fang Yuan has seen through our plan. In the Guo family's rules, it was stated that the eldest son at the age of 16 had the right to inherit the family's property. Fang Yuan's parents had already passed away, leaving behind a sizable inheritance that was safeguarded by his aunt and uncle. The value of this inheritance was not something that a mere 200 pieces of yuan stone could compare to. If Fang Yuan were to be adopted by his aunt and uncle like Fang Jing, he wouldn't have the right to inherit this inheritance. If Fang Yuan left the family at the age of 15, he wouldn't be in line with the family's inheritance rules. Fortunately, we managed to win over Fang Jing, and Fang Yuan only has a C-grade aptitude. His uncle sighed again, feeling extremely fortunate. Then, Master, Fang Yuan clearly wants to leave the family at 16. What should we do? His aunt's tone became anxious when she thought of the inheritance. Since he has bad intentions, then he can't blame us. As long as we catch him before he leaves the family, we can chase him out of the family and deprive him of the right to inherit the inheritance. His uncle snorted coldly. But Fang Yuan, this little bastard, is very smart. How could he make a mistake? His aunt was puzzled. His uncle immediately rolled his eyes and scolded in a low voice, "You're really stupid. If he doesn't make a mistake, then why can't we frame him? Let that girl, Shen Kui, seduce Fang Yuan first, then cry out that she's molesting him. We'll catch him red-handed on the spot, then frame him for drunkenness and madness. Do you think we can't chase Fang Yuan out? Master, you still have a way. What a brilliant plan." His aunt was immediately overjoyed. The dense darkness of the night covered the sky, and the stars were mostly covered by the drifting dark clouds. Every household in the village gradually lit up their lights. Guyue Fangjing was led into a room. "Young Master Fangjing, this is a room that Master personally instructed old slave to specially prepare for you," Shen Mema eagerly introduced. She bowed, her face filled with a flattering smile. Fangjing's eyes lit up as he looked around. This room was twice the size of his previous one. There was a spacious bed in the center, a sandalwood desk by the windowsill, and an exquisite writing brush, ink, paper, and inkstone. The surrounding walls were decorated with exquisite decorations. Even the floor under his feet wasn't ordinary, but was covered with a layer of soft, handmade carpet. Ever since he was young, Fangjing had never lived in a room like this. He immediately nodded, "This is very good, really not bad. Thank you, Shen Mema." This Shen Mema was his aunt's most valued servant. She managed all the servants in the house, and was truly a housekeeper. Fang Yuan's personal maidservant, Shen Kui, was her daughter. Shen Mema chuckled, "How could this servant dare to accept young master's thanks? It's what I should do, what I should do. Young master, you can eat and sleep well. If you want anything, just ring the bell by the bedside, and a servant will immediately come up to listen to your orders. Master has instructed that for these days, young master, you should wholeheartedly focus on your cultivation. The other trivial matters will be handled by us servants." Fangjing's heart once again surged with gratitude. He didn't say anything else, but silently made up his mind. This time, he must win first place, and not let uncle and aunt down. The dark clouds in the sky were getting thicker, and the night was getting darker. The stars in the night sky were almost completely covered by the clouds, leaving only a few flickering weakly in the sky. Uncle and aunt must be planning on how to kick me out of the house. In my previous life, they secretly instigated servants to provoke me, then framed me, and finally kicked me out of the house. I don't know how things will change in this life. Fang Yuan walked on the street, laughing coldly in his heart. He had long seen through his uncle and aunt's true colors. But it was understandable. People die for wealth, and birds die for food. Whether it was on earth or in this world, there were always so many people who trampled on family, friendship, and love for the sake of profit. In reality, there was no such thing as family. When his uncle and aunt adopted Fang Yuan and Fangjing, their main purpose was to covet the inheritance. It was just that the two brothers, Fang Yuan and Fangjing, had repeatedly surprised them. Everything is difficult at the beginning, especially for me. First, I don't have an outstanding aptitude, and second, I don't have a teacher to take care of me. It's the same as starting from scratch. My parents' inheritance can be said to be a huge springboard for me. In my previous life, my inheritance was taken away by my uncle and aunt, causing me to spend a whole 2 years before I could cultivate to the peak of the first rank. In this life, I can't make this mistake again. Fang Yuan walked like this, thinking at the same time. He did not stay in his residence, but carried 2 jars of wine, heading out of the village. The night sky was getting darker and darker, and the dark clouds covered the stars. The mountain wind was blowing, and it seemed to be getting stronger. A storm was brewing. But he still had to explore. If he wanted to get back his parents' inheritance, he would have to wait until he turned 16 next year. And the flower wine monk's inheritance was something that could be obtained in the near future. There were very few people on the streets. Dim light shone from the houses by the side of the road. Some trivial household rubbish, leaves, and dust were blown by the wind, drifting about randomly. Fang Yuan's thin clothes could not withstand the mountain wind, and he could not help but feel a chill. He simply opened the jar of wine he was carrying, and took a small sip. Although it was turbid, but after swallowing it, there was a warm feeling rising in his body. This was the first time he really drank wine in these few days. The further he went out of the village, the fewer the houses by the side of the road, and the dimmer the lights. In front of him, it was even darker. The wind blew against the forest, and the branches swayed in the night, making whooshing sounds, like the roar of a group of beasts. Fang Yuan's steps did not have the slightest bit of hesitation, and he went out of the village's main gate, walking further and further away in the dark road. And behind him was the bright and glorious lights of tens of thousands of houses. In the midst of these lights, there was a warm corner. His younger brother, Guo Fangjing, sat in front of his desk, revising the notes he had taken in class. The house was brightly lit, and the solid walls blocked the cold wind. Beside his hand was a cup of warm ginseng tea, steam rising in spirals. "Young Master Fangjing, the hot water for bathing has been prepared for you." Outside the door, Shun Kui's voice came softly. Fangjing's heart moved, "Then bring it in." With a charming face, Shun Kui swayed her waist as she walked into the room. "This servant greets young Master Fangjing." She looked at Fangjing with flirtatious eyes. Fang Yuan was only a C-grade talent, while Fangjing was an A-grade talent. To be able to climb up to him, that was the true wealth. Chapter 10. Pa pa pa, bean-sized raindrops fell densely. The raindrops hit the verdant bamboo building, making a crisp sound. In the pond in front of the building, the surface of the water was beaten by the raindrops. Fish swam happily in the water, and water plants swayed at the bottom of the pond. Dark clouds covered the sky, and the entire field of vision was blocked by a thick curtain of rain. In a dark room, the window was open. Fang Yuan quietly watched the heavy rain, sighing in his heart, "It's already been 3 days and 3 nights. 3 days ago, he carried 2 jars of wine and left the village, continuing to explore the surroundings. But late at night, it rained cats and dogs. Let's not talk about him being drenched like a drowned rat. The key was that in such a situation, it caused a feeling of weakness, explore around. Like the meridians the rain were being could pulled quickly out. Wash away the smell of alcohol, 2%, and at the same time, 3%, if he forcefully explored in the rain, 9%, he might arouse 10%. Suspicion. 10 minutes later, he pretended to be frustrated and he had used up 10% of his primeval essence. But never underestimate the surface the intelligence of others. Like moonlight GU. Often, the two bronze green dots that other crescent moon only expanded so in desperation, the moonlight GU's could only stop his exploration. And this rain continued. Fang Yuan during this period, it was heavy he was or not light, surprised, sparse or dense, continued to inject primeval essence this into way, the moonlight GU. I won't be able to find the liquor worm in a short period of time. 30%. To be safe, after another 20 minutes, refining the Fang Yuan's primeval C in was this only refining with process. 14%. It would be best if I can find the liquor worm on the moonlight GU, but if I can't, then I can only make do with it. If the 2 green dots were superimposed, it would be about 1/12 winds and clouds in the sky. Is there anyone in this world it was who still can the light blue color of the moonlight perfectly? Refining a state of mind was very calm. Seeing this, 500 years of experience had long washed away the impulsiveness in his temperament and stopped refining the moonlight. He closed the window and door. At this moment, cross-legged on the bed, refining the GU for half an hour closed his eyes, consumed more and after regulating his breathing, he sank there was only 14% the next of primeval essence the scene left. Of his own aperture and the moonlight in his mind had only been although the aperture was in the body. It was moreover, very mysterious. What was even more difficult to accept was that the moonlight GU on the outside of the aperture blue halo. There was a layer of light. Although Fang Yuan the white light refining, gave a very thin it did not feeling, stop resisting, but it firmly supported it was still the expelling Fang Yuan's in the aperture. There was a primeval C. Fang Yuan the C was bronze in color, the primeval and the surface that had been injected into the moonlight GU. The water level was expelled out of the body bit by bit. On the entire volume of the primeval C occupied 44% of the aperture were also this was a rank 1 GU masters based on this rate of reduction C. After about every drop of seawater the moonlight GU would be able to expel it all was of Fang Yuan's life force. The condensation of Fang Yuan's refining this GU would be no different from sacrificing it all over again because it was a every time I refine a GU the source it is like 2 armies fighting a battle of positions. A war of attrition could refine. I have only refined 1/12 of the GU. As his mind left the primeval has been consumed Fang Yuan opened his eyes and took out the when refining a GU. The moonlight GU must replenish the primeval essence in the primeval C while continuously sacrificing to consolidate the results of victory. Refining a GU is not only a test of the technique of mobilizing primeval essence, but also the patience of a prolonged battle. And
Fang Yuan
suddenly
thought as he
the
took
sea,
out a yuan stone
moonlight,
from his money bag.
the sea,
There were usually two ways
GU,
for a GU master to
and blue
replenish
light,
Primeval essence.
in,
The first was
in,
natural recovery.
moonlight in,
Every once in a while, the Primeval
GU
sea
in,
would automatically replenish
GU,
Primeval
is,
essence.
GU
For
was,
a C-grade
were,
talent like Fang
is,
Yuan,
it
it
was
would
a
take
living
about an hour
creature.
to replenish
It was born
40%
free.
of Primeval essence.
It had its own will.
In 6 hours,
Fang Yuan
he could recover
wanted to refine
24% of his
He
total
wanted to
Primeval
erase
essence.
its will.
The
Sensing
second
the
method
danger,
was to absorb the
moonlight
natural
GU
Primeval
resisted.
energy in the yuan
The process
stone.
of refining
The
was
yuan
very
stone
difficult.
was a treasure of
The
nature,
moonlight GU
condensing
was like a
natural
crescent
Primeval
moon.
essence and
When
could
the
be
bronze
absorbed by a
Primeval
GU
essence
master.
was injected into
Fang
the crescent
Yuan
moon,
held the yuan
the two
stone in
tips
his
of the
hand,
crescent moon were dyed
continuously
green.
absorbing the natural
Then,
Primeval
the bronze
essence
green
from
color
within
started to
into the
spread to the
Primeval
middle
sea
of the
in his
crescent
aperture.
moon.
The
In
fine
less than
luster
3
on
minutes,
the surface of the
Fang
yuan's
Yuan's
stone
face
slowly
was pale,
dimmed, while the
large
water
amounts
levels
of
in
Fang
Primeval
Yuan's
essence
Primeval
kept
sea
pouring
rose
into
at
the
a speed
moonlight
visible to the
GU.
naked eye.
About half an hour later, the Primeval sea had recovered to 44% of its original size. At this point, the rising trend of the sea level came to an abrupt halt. Although there was still space in the aperture, Fang Yuan could no longer store any more Primeval essence. This was the limitation of his C-grade talent. From this, one could see the importance of cultivation talent. The higher the talent, the more Primeval essence could be stored in the aperture, and the faster the natural recovery of Primeval essence. For Fang Yuan, to refine the GU and consolidate the results, he had to absorb the yuan stone. This was because the natural recovery speed of his Primeval essence could not be compared to the speed at which the moonlight GU expelled Primeval essence. But for an A-grade talent like Fangjing, he could replenish 80% of Primeval essence every hour. In 6 hours, he could recover 48% of his total Primeval essence, while the moonlight GU could only expel 30% of Primeval essence in the same 6 hours. He did not even need external help like the yuan stone. He could continue refining like this, rest a few times in between, and after a few days, he would be able to successfully refine the moonlight GU. Therefore, from the beginning, Fang Yuan knew that in this assessment of refining the moonlight GU, he had no chance of getting first place. This had nothing to do with strength, but talent was the first factor. The second factor was the yuan stone. If there was an abundance of yuan stone, without hesitation, a B-grade talent could also surpass an A-grade talent and get first place. I only have 6 pieces of yuan stone in my hands. I can't compare to people like Gua Morbei and Gua Cheng, who have the support of elders behind them. My talent is only C-grade, and I can't compare to an A-grade talent like Gua Fangjing. There was no chance of winning this assessment, so I might as well divert my energy to look for the liquor worm. If I could refine the liquor worm into my vital GU, it would be much better than the moonlight GU. The sound of the rain outside the window had lessened, and there seemed to be signs of it stopping. This rain has been going on for 3 days and 3 nights, it's time to stop. Fang Yuan put away the moonlight GU, got off the bed, and was about to open the window when there was a knock on the door. The voice of his personal maid, Shen Kui, came from outside the door. "Young Master Fang Yuan, it's me. It's been raining for 3 days, so I brought you some food and wine. Young Master, eat and drink a little, and it will relieve some of your boredom." Chapter 11. Fang Yuan's brows slightly wrinkled. Based on his intuition and 500 years of life experience, he smelled a conspiracy. A cold light flashed in his eyes and his brows relaxed. "I'm a little hungry. You came at the right time, bring it in for me." Outside the door, Shen Kui carried the food box. When she heard this, her mouth revealed a trace of disdain. But when she pushed open the door, there was only a gentle look left on her face. "Young Master Fang Yuan, this food and wine is very fragrant. This servant can smell it through the food box." Her voice was sweet and greasy, revealing an amorous charm. Putting the food box on the small table, Shen Kui took out the plates one by one and arranged them. The plates were indeed full of delicious food. She then took out 2 wine glasses and poured wine. "Come, young master, sit down. This servant boldly wants to drink with young master today." She smiled like a flower and walked to Fang Yuan's side. She boldly pulled Fang Yuan's hand and dragged him to the stool next to the table. Then she directly sat on Fang Yuan's thighs. Her delicate body leaned on Fang Yuan's chest and she said in Fang Yuan's ear, "Young Master Fang Yuan, this servant has always liked you. No matter what aptitude, this servant wants to accompany you, rely on you, and comfort you. Tonight, this servant wants to give my body to you." Today, she was dressed up. She put on rouge and her lips were like cherry pink. Because she was speaking close to his ear, a delicate and youthful breath teased Fang Yuan's earlobe. Because she was sitting in his arms, Fang Yuan could clearly feel Shen Kui's plump body. Her elastic thighs, her soft waist, and the softness of her chest. "Young master, let this servant feed you wine." Shen Kui picked up the wine glass, raised her head, and sipped the wine. Then, her eyes seemed to be filled with water as she stared at Fang Yuan. Her cherry mouth was slightly open as she slowly leaned towards Fang Yuan's lips. Fang Yuan's expression was cold, as if the person in his arms was not a girl, but a statue. Looking at Fang Yuan's expression, Shen Kui's heart was a little uneasy at first. But when her lips were only a finger's distance away from touching Fang Yuan's lips, she was sure and smiled disdainfully in her heart, still pretending. Right at this moment, Fang Yuan sneered and said in a disdainful tone, "So it's just seduction." Shen Kui's expression stiffened. She swallowed the wine in her mouth and pretended to be angry. "Young Master Fang Yuan, what are you saying?" Fang Yuan's pair of eyes faintly emitted a cold light, staring at Shen Kui's eyes. At the same time, his right hand was placed on her snow-white neck, slowly exerting force. Shen Kui's pupils shrank and her voice was filled with panic. "Young master, you are hurting me." Fang Yuan did not reply, but the strength in his hands increased. "Young master Fang Yuan, this servant is a little scared." Shen Kui immediately opened her mouth was already somewhat out of breath. Her breathing was too urgent and a pair of delicate hands caused a violent dry cough on Fang Yuan's hands. Fang Yuan wanting to pry his hands away. He stretched out his palm and gently stroked Shen Kui's cheek. How could she pry them away? "It seems that uncle and aunt let you seduce and Fang Yuan had roared and roared. There should be people arranged downstairs." But when Fang Yuan smiled and spoke softly, "But who do you think you are to seduce in such a soft voice? Just based on the 2 piles of rotten flesh on your chest." She was afraid. Saying that, she looked at his left hand climbed onto Shen Kui's chest. She looked at this young man who was smiling on her chest. At this moment, all of a sudden, Shen Kui swore that she would never forget Fang Yuan's eyes. A strong pain came from her chest. This pair of eyes was not mixed with the slightest emotion. Filled her eyes. They were dark and deep. She wanted to cry out, like an ancient pond, but her throat was choked by a terrifying giant beast. In the end, under the gaze of this pair of eyes, a few times, Shen Kui felt as if she was naked and placed in a world of ice. If she didn't resist, the person in front of her absolutely dared to kill her. Fang Yuan slowly loosened his grip. Why did I come to provoke such a devil? Shen Kui's heart was filled with regret. At this moment, she wanted to turn around and escape. But at this moment, she threw herself into Fang Yuan's arms. She did not dare to escape. She did not even dare to make a single movement. All the muscles in her body were tense. Her delicate body trembled. Her face was as pale as paper. She could not say a word. "Considering that you have served me for so many years as my personal maid, I will not kill you this time. Don't you want to get rid of your slave status? Go find my younger brother. He is stupid and naive." Fang Yuan put away his smile and patted Shen Kui's cheek. His tone was as calm as water. With a sigh, he finally said, "You can go." Shen Kui was dumbstruck and obediently walked out. She was dazed. She did not know how she escaped from the side of Fang Yuan, this devil. The people hidden in the dark, seeing Shen Kui come out like this, looked at each other in confusion. "You actually arranged a beauty trap. This is a new idea compared to the previous life. Hihi, uncle and aunt, I will deeply remember your kindness." Not long after Shen Kui left, Fang Yuan stood up and went out the door. No matter what, he could not stay in this residence. A gentleman does not stand under a collapsing wall. Not to mention a devil. Without enough strength, only a fool would put himself in danger. "Shopkeeper, do you have a room?" Coming to the only inn in the village, Fang Yuan asked for the price. Yes. There are rooms on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Not only are they cheap, they are also very clean. The 1st floor is the dining hall. You can eat here, or you can ask the waiter to send food to your room. The shopkeeper attentively served Fang Yuan. This inn was the only one in the village. Business was not good. It seemed a bit deserted. Only when the caravan came to Qing Maro Mountain to trade every year would the inn be full of people. Fang Yuan was really hungry, so he tossed 2 whole primeval stones to the shopkeeper. Give me a room, I'll stay in it first. Also, prepare 2 jars of wine and 3 or 4 dishes. I'll refund any excess and make up for any deficiency. Okay. The shopkeeper took the 2 pieces of yuan stone and asked, would you like to eat in your room or in the dining hall? Fang Yuan looked at the sky. The rain had already stopped and it was almost evening. He might as well finish eating in the dining hall and then leave the village to explore the flower wine monk's inheritance. He said to the shopkeeper, let's eat in the dining hall. The inn had a dining hall on the first floor. There were more than 10 square tables and 4 long benches around the tables. Between the tables, there were thick pillars supporting the inn. The floor was covered with pieces of marble, but it was wet and could not hide the humidity in the mountains. There were 3 tables in the dining hall. At the table by the window, there was only an old man drinking wine. He looked at the sunset outside the window and slowly drank alone. At the table in the middle, there were 5 or 6 hunters sitting in a circle. They were loudly talking about their hunting experiences. There was a pile of pheasants and hares on the ground beside their feet. At the table in the corner, there were 2 young people who seemed to be secretly discussing something. Their figures were hidden in the shadows and could not be seen clearly. It was impossible to tell if they were men or women. Fang Yuan chose a seat near the door and sat down. Not long after, food and wine were served on the table. With my C-grade talent, I need the help of Yuan Stone to refine the Moonlight GU. If my luck is good and the Moonlight Gu's will is not strong, I only need 5 pieces. If it is stubborn, then it will be troublesome. I need at least 8 pieces. GU worms were also living beings and naturally had the will to live. Some had strong willpower and would keep resisting the GU master's refinement. Some had weak willpower and would surrender at the end of the refinement. Once it lost the will to resist, then the refinement would be extremely easy. I only have 6 pieces of Yuan Stone on me now. I've already given 2 to the shopkeeper, so I only have 4 left. It's not enough. In this world, Yuan Stone was a hard currency and had a strong purchasing power. For a mortal family of 3, their monthly living expenses would at most be 1 primeval stone. But to a GU master, the consumption of Yuan Stone was huge. Just like Fang Yuan. Just refining the GU required an average of 7 pieces of Yuan Stone. And this was just the Moonlight GU. If he really found the liquor worm and wanted to refine it, with Fang Yuan's talent, he would need to spend at least 10 more pieces of Yuan Stone. That is to say, the current situation is even if I find the liquor worm, I may not have Yuan Stone to help me refine it. But I still need to continue exploring because the flower wine monk's inheritance is very likely to have large amounts of Yuan Stone. This was not hard to deduce. The flower wine monk was a rank 5 GU master, a famous demonic expert. How could he not have Yuan Stone, a GU master's essential cultivation item? Walking into a bamboo forest, he stopped. The 7 days of exploration were not without results. At least it proved that the flower wine monk did not die in those places. This was the second reason why Fang Yuan was so confident. In the bamboo forest, the grass was luxuriant, the white flowers were endless,
and the green spear bamboos were straight like jade poles. Fang Yuan opened the small jar's mud seal, and immediately a strong fragrance of wine assaulted his nose. Green bamboo wine could be said to be the best wine in the Guyue village. This was the third reason why Fang Yuan was so confident tonight. With these 3 reasons, if I want to succeed, it must be tonight. Fang Yuan secretly cheered in his heart, and slowly tilted the jar, pouring a small amount of green bamboo wine onto a stone. If those hunters saw this scene, they would definitely be distressed. This wine was worth a whole 2 primeval stones. But Fang Yuan was indifferent. The mellow fragrance of the wine quickly spread. In the night, the wind was gentle, and the fragrance floated, soaking the bamboo forest. Fang Yuan stood where he was, smelling the wine, and waited for a moment, but there was no movement. He only heard a nightingale-like bird, not far away, its voice like a string of silver bells. His eyes were calm, and he was not surprised. He moved his feet, turned around, and went to the next place a few hundred meters away. At this place, he did the same thing, poured out some wine, and stood still for a moment. He did this 3 or 5 times, changed a few places, and poured wine a few times. There was not much green bamboo wine left in the jar. This is the last time. Fang Yuan sighed in his heart, and completely inverted the jar in his hand. The bottom of the jar was facing the sky, and he poured out all the remaining wine. The wine spilled on the grass, and the grass swayed. The wild flowers were wet with the wine, and slightly drooped their heads. Fang Yuan stood still, holding on to his last hope, and gazed around. It was already late at night. A thick cloud obscured the moonlight here. The shadow was like a layer of curtain, covering the bamboo forest. The surroundings were silent, the stalks of Qing Maro bamboos stood alone, leaving behind straight up and down silhouettes in Fang Yuan's eyes. He quietly stood in the same place, listening to his extremely clear breathing, and then feeling the little remaining hope in his chest, constantly fading away. Still failed. He murmured in his heart, tonight, 3 big advantages accumulated together, but still failed. I can't find the shadow of the liquor worm. This means that the success rate will be even lower in the future. I only have 2 yuan stone left, and I still need to refine the moonlight GU. I can't take any more risks. The result of taking risks was often not ideal. But if it was the ideal result, then the profits would be considerable. Fang Yuan liked to take risks, but he was not addicted to gambling. He was not the kind of gambler who would lose red eyes and want to win back his losses. He had his own bottom line, and he was clear about his own capital. Now, 500 years of life experience told him that it was time to stop. Sometimes, life was like this. There was often such a goal, and it was so beautiful and full of temptation. It seemed to be close at hand, but no matter how much effort he put in, he could never reach it. It made people toss and turn, thinking about it day and night. This is the helplessness of life, but also the charm of life. Fang Yuan shook his head with a bitter smile, and turned around to leave. At this time, a gust of wind blew, like a gentle arm, gently brushing away the floating clouds in the night sky. The floating clouds leisurely passed, revealing the hidden crescent moon. The crescent moon hung in the sky, like a white jade cup, pouring the clear moonlight down. The moonlight poured on the green bamboo forest, poured on the rocks, poured on the mountain streams, poured on Fang Yuan's body. Fang Yuan wore a simple robe, his young face under the gentle touch of the moonlight, looked even whiter. The darkness seemed to disappear in an instant, and was replaced by a snow-like frost. As if infected by the moonlight, the silent nightingales began to sing again. This time, it was not just one, but several, scattered in the bamboo forest, responding one after another. At the same time, a kind of dragonpill cricket that lived in the mountains, under the moonlight, also sang the song of life. They were insects that only came out at night, and their bodies emitted a red light. At this moment, they jumped out in groups, each of their bodies flashing with a red agate-like brilliance. At first glance, Fang Yuan thought that this group of dragonpill crickets was like a jumping scarlet water, stepping on the grass and wild flowers, leaping in the bamboo forest under the moonlight. The bamboo forest was as clear as a pool of water, and the green spear bamboo, under the moonlight, flashed with a jade-like brilliance. There was light at the end of the tunnel,
Nature was showing its beauty to Fang Yuan at this moment. Fang Yuan unconsciously stopped, feeling like he was in a fairyland. He was about to turn and leave, but at this moment, he subconsciously turned back to look. The wild flowers and grass that were poured with the green bamboo wine, slightly trembling in the wind, still empty. Fang Yuan laughed at himself, withdrawing his gaze. However, he did not think that in the process of raising his eyes, he would see a white snow shadow. This snow shadow was attached to a green spear bamboo pole not far away, under the moonlight, like a perfectly round pearl hanging. Fang Yuan's pupils suddenly dilated, his body slightly trembled, his heart thumping faster and faster. It was the liquor worm. It began to struggle violently, transferring its own strength to drive away Fang Yuan's primeval essence. This liquor worm has such a strong resistance. Fang Yuan's expression turned solemn, feeling that the rate of consumption of primeval essence was more than double that of the moonlight GU. No matter what, I am going to refine the liquor worm. His eyes flashed with a hint of determination, and he continued to transfer primeval essence towards the liquor worm. In the inn's room, the candlelight on the table quietly burned, illuminating the center of the room with a bright light. As for the far corners of the room, it was dark. The candlelight shone on Fang Yuan's face. He had already closed his eyes, concentrating on dealing with the liquor worm. A continuous stream of green copper primeval essence, like a mist, was emitted from Fang Yuan's body, and then gathered together, firmly wrapping around the liquor worm. The liquor worm floated in the air, less than a foot away from Fang Yuan's face. It struggled vigorously in the green copper primeval essence's encirclement. Time quietly passed. The candlelight burned lower and lower, and the candlelight also became dimmer. The crescent moon outside the window had already slowly descended, and a new day had arrived. The early morning sun shone through the cracks in the window into the room. It was like a light border was placed on the window. Fang Yuan opened his eyes, looking at the liquor worm in front of him. On the liquor worm's white body, there was already a trace of green. This was the result of Fang Yuan's hard work for half a night. But it was clear that this bit of green was not even 1% of the liquor worm's body. Fang Yuan's expression was solemn. This liquor worm's willpower was too tenacious, and its resistance was extremely strong, almost exceeding the limits of a rank 1 GU worm. This GU worm is very likely to be the flower wine monk's vital GU. The flower wine monk was a rank 5 expert, and this liquor worm was originally also a rank 5 expert. But these past few years, it did not have enough food, and as a result, its grade dropped. Now it is only a rank 1 GU worm, but its willpower is as tenacious as a rock. Fang Yuan guessed the truth. This liquor worm was originally the flower wine monk's vital GU, and its original natural willpower had been cleansed by the flower wine monk. It had accompanied the flower wine monk all the way from north to south, roaming the pugilistic world. After the flower wine monk died, his strong willpower still existed in the liquor worm. Fang Yuan wanted to refine the liquor worm now, which was equivalent to competing with the flower wine monk's willpower. This was much more difficult than refining a natural GU worm. A person's willpower was generally higher than a natural GU worm's, and at the juncture of life and death, they could erupt with strength that even they could not imagine. And the flower wine monk was a demonic path expert, a loner, roaming the pugilistic world. His willpower was even more tenacious than a righteous path expert of the same level. It's impossible to refine this liquor worm within a month. Unless an expert uses a rank 2 or rank 3 Gu's aura to suppress this liquor worm, and suppress the liquor worm's willpower to the lowest level. With this kind of help, I can achieve twice the result with half the effort. Thinking of this, Fang Yuan could not help but sigh. His parents had already passed away, and his uncle and aunt were scheming against him. He himself had no backing, so where could he find external help? If he had a grade aptitude, it would be fine, but now his aptitude was only C grade. None of the clansmen thought highly of him, so who would be willing to spend so much effort to help him? More importantly, the existence of the liquor worm could not be exposed. Guyue's village did not have a GU like the liquor worm,
So Fang Yuan could not explain the origin of this liquor worm. If it was exposed, it was very likely to be noticed by the higher-ups, and thus form a connection with the flower wine monk. It was too easy to link the two together. According to this calculation, 17 pieces of yuan stone is not enough. I need at least 30 pieces of yuan stone. This is really troublesome, but no matter how difficult it is, I will refine this liquor worm. Fang Yuan's willpower was like iron, and he had already made up his mind to refine the liquor worm. A vital GU was very important, and to a large extent, it would affect a GU master's future cultivation direction. Although the liquor worm was not the most ideal choice for a vital GU in this world, it was much better than the moonlight GU. It was also the best level that Fang Yuan could achieve in his current situation. Grumble, grumble. At this time, Fang Yuan's stomach protested. He had not slept the whole night, and had put all his effort into refining the liquor worm, so Fang Yuan was naturally hungry. I should first fill my stomach, then think of how to accumulate yuan stone. Fang Yuan rubbed his stomach and went downstairs. When he reached the dining hall on the first floor, he chose a corner seat and ordered a few dishes for breakfast. Just as he started to eat, his younger brother Guo Fangjing appeared. "Brother, why are you staying at the inn? Why don't you go back to sleep at night?" He was very rude, and his tone carried an interrogative tone.